Hey, I'm Alexei. I'm one of the co-founders of Interlay, and I'll be talking about bridges and how to master them. So my background is in computer science. I've been doing research on cross-chain interoperability for the last couple of years. And what we do at Interlay is we build bridges, and this talk will walk us through why bridges are difficult and what solutions exist. So the first question is, why do we need bridges? And I think we're all here at this conference we're all aware why bridges are necessary. We all build different projects. Everybody has their own use case. You want to customize your product to a certain use case. So you could go on Ethereum and you build a smart contract and you have a Swiss Army knife. You can do everything. It's very easy, but if it can do everything, it doesn't do anything good, like very good in particular. So think of Swiss Army knife. But if you want to build a house, a Swiss Army knife is not enough. So you end up needing more specialized equipment, and that's why Polkadot as an ecosystem exists. So I think I don't have to talk much about why bridges are necessary. Think of it this way: it's very unlikely that there will be one chain to rule them all. We see this in the current ecosystem. There's dozens of new projects. There's a new app chain thesis with new L2s and layer 1s being introduced every week. So it's very unlikely that everything will disappear and only one chain will remain. Now, the challenge with this whole is that there's less than 10% of the bridge volume in total that is actually decentralized. And I just looked up the data earlier today. Over $10 billion have been moved between different blockchains over the last 30 days. And only a very small percentage is decentralized. And that's only because we have things like Polkadot XCM, Cosmos IBC, some L2 bridges, and also the Interlay Bitcoin bridge. That's about it. So the state of decentralized bridges is pretty dire. So let's talk about bridges and actually dive deeper into the actual problem. So the first thing to understand and realize is that bridging is the same thing as depositing, and that's something that people often don't really get right in the first time, because bridges, blockchains, it sounds so sophisticated, it feels like you need something very complicated. But what you're actually doing is you're depositing if we speak of DOT, you're depositing your DOT into some system, into some product. And this can be a parachain, it could be another chain like Ethereum, Avalanche, but it's the same principle holds for depositing your DOT into Binance. If you deposit DOT into Binance, your DOT are in Binance's ledger. And yes, they have some off-chain consensus, basically CZ saying you get DOT. Essentially they have a system that's off-chain and you trust them that they operate correctly. If you deposit DOT into Interlay, there's a governance system that is part of Polkadot. Of course, it has a bit better security, but in the end, you're depositing into a system. Now, what are the goals of cross-chain bridging, right? What we want to do is we want to deposit DOT into an app chain, and I use app chain here. Obviously, we all have parachains, L2s have L2s, so I'm just using a more generic word. So you deposit DOT into an application, and you use it there, and that's what the user really cares about. You want to use your assets in some product. And at some point, you want to go back, right? And you don't want to really worry about not getting your assets out of the system. So the goal for an end user, and that's the people we actually are building for, is to have a very simple interface, deposit, withdraw, and they obviously want to know that they will get their assets back, no matter what happens. And this is a very good time to revisit some trust models. And it's going to get much more fun, I promise, in a second, but we have to get some of the technical basics right first. So when we use a single chain, obviously what I need is a wallet. And then I trust that the network is secure. So if I'm using the Polkadot relay chain, I'm assuming that the Polkadot relay chain is working, right? And how do I verify? Well, there's open source code, and there's a community, it's operating, I can check, it's all transparent, I can see, oh yes, a few minutes ago transactions were working, so there's a good chance that it's going to work for me now. When you go multi-chain, you add a layer of trust. So suddenly you have not one, but multiple wallets. And yes, in Polkadot, we can use one wallet across multiple systems. There is multi-chain wallets, but at the core, you're creating an account in each individual chain, and you have to manage it. And you need a way to bridge, right? So you need two wallets or a multi-chain wallet and some way to bridge your assets over. And the things that you trust, you have network 1 and network 2 suddenly, so you need to trust both of them. Usually that's fine, because why would you be bridging from one network to the other if you don't trust it, right? So you're kind of assuming, I'll trust the target system if I'm bridging over, otherwise I wouldn't be using it. But then you also trust that the wallet's not corrupted. That's still kind of similar to the single chain model, but where it gets interesting is that you trust that the bridges are not corrupted. And this is what we'll be talking about today. And what you can do to verify, well, if there's open source code, you look at open source code, or you trust the reputation of a bridge. So we trust some centralized bridges that have been exploited but have been recovered, and that kind of adds some trust, at least for most users. Whether that's a good thing or not, it's for everybody to decide. Right, now, basics. So it's important to understand that DOT only exists on the DOT relay chain, right? There is no way for you to really move DOTs, the real underlying assets, to another system. Blockchains exist in isolation, they're secure by itself. So even within the Polkadot ecosystem, when we move DOT from the relay chain to, let's say, Interlay, Hydra, Akala, A-Star, you're wrapping, and you get XC DOT, right? Because you're using Polkadot's built-in XCM system, but if you move it to Ethereum, you also get a wrapped asset. And wrapping basically means that you create a one-to-one representation of your token or coin on the other chain, and it looks and feels just like a native asset. So you're wrapping it into the format, into the functionality of the other system. For the computer scientists, it means you're getting a write lock. So you're saying DOT on Polkadot, this coin, this account, and this coin will no longer get any ownership changes while it exists on the other system. And then if it changes ownership there, then obviously I need to propagate this back to the source chain and update the account ownership. So when you go back, you release the write lock and you make sure that all the updates are executed before you actually finalize. So why is bridging so difficult? And this brings us back to a probably one of the oldest problems of humankind, the fair exchange problem. And bear with me, it sounds a bit weird, but it's actually a very simple problem. So let's say Alice has Bitcoin and she wants to buy an Apple. Bob obviously wants the money. Well, so what do? They have to somehow exchange goods, right? So usually they would meet in some marketplace, and ideally they trust each other, or they meet in a public space where there is many people, and Alice knows that Bob will not stab her and steal her money. Well, but on the internet, what do you do then? If you're trading goods with an anonymous person, there is no one to ensure that the other person is honest, right? Somebody has to go first. Think of Amazon, or if you've ever sold something on Gumtree or whatever, you meet the person or you make the payment, right? If you're buying goods today, you're making the payment first, and then you're waiting until delivery, or vice versa. But somebody always has to make the first move. And in the case of exchanging cryptocurrencies, this is actually a very big problem. What if I send you Bitcoin and you never send me back my DOT? What do I do? And in the end, it burns down to the simple fact that to go cross-chain, you need a trusted third party. Because to exchange goods, there is a very old proof and result that in computer science, but we've known this for thousands of years. If you are exchanging goods, you need somebody to enforce that both parties behave honestly. Now, how does this relate to bridges? Well, when I wrap something, when I'm wrapping DOT to XC DOT from Polkadot to Ethereum, for example, I'm actually swapping. I'm swapping native DOT for the wrapped DOT. And then when I go back, I'm swapping the wrapped DOT for the native DOT. Even if you're swapping with a smart contract, it doesn't matter. So someone or something needs to make sure that the DOT is locked and unlocked based on the correct conditions. So if you look at now our simplified example here, the cross-chain problem is that Alice wants to lock her DOT and get the blue XC DOT on Ethereum. And Bob might be the smart contract, the bridge system, or just somebody who's going to receive these XC DOT. Well, he wants to know that the actual DOT are locked, because otherwise, you'd be printing fake money, like the dollar currently. So the challenge of bridging burns down to picking the correct trusted third party. You can start with centralized, so Bob and Alice trust Alexei, I get the money, I get DOT, and I basically confirm to the smart contract, yes, perfect. Then you can decentralize it a bit more, you get 5 people. So there's 5 of me, maybe there's like 10 people in this room, we can make it bigger, maybe 20, so it's a big multi-sig. And that's how most bridges work today. You can take it a step further if you now allow more people to easily join and leave these group of bridge operators. So then you go to things like Axelar, which have their own proof-of-stake consensus, and it's a third chain. So now you have suddenly have Polkadot and Ethereum, you're bridging the two, and you have a third network that's kind of connecting them. And last but not least, and that's the optimal case, you only have Polkadot and Ethereum. You don't need anybody else. But before we go to the optimal case, let's look at the, well, not so great centralized one. You all know this, you've probably, most of you have already done this before. If you're bridging dots to another network, right, from parachain to parachain, from relay chain to parachain, what you do is in step one, you deposit dots, right? Now, what if we have to use a centralized bridge in this case? So now we're going outside of Polkadot, which actually has a decentralized bridge, and you're going to, let's say, Wormhole or something else, and you're bridging to Ethereum. So you deposit dot into the smart contract in the deposit account of the bridge operator. The bridge operator, you can also call them a centralized issuer because they're the ones issuing you the wrapped token. So they will look at the account and say, hey, yes, I got the dot. Here is your wrapped dot on the other chain. Perfect, simple. When you want to go back, you have to return the wrapped dot, and you have to ask them, well, please give me my original dot back. And if everything goes right, if the bridge is operating correctly, you will get your original dot back. Just like withdrawing from Binance or from another exchange, you say, hey, here is my assets, I want to have the original underlying, perfect. But we know that in the past, this was not always the case. And the problem is that if you have a centralized party, well, they can disappear with your coins. They can be hacked, there can be a government that seizes the assets, they can be censoring you, or they have lost access themselves, as we've seen recently. And there's nothing that you as a user can actually do about it. So yeah, I mean, over the past couple of years, we've had over $1 billion exploited. Some of these assets, like Pool Network, has been returned. There was a white hat in the end. But so much money has been stolen, and these are just the ones that are actually due to private key or access control mismanagement. So the bridge operators there just, failed to manage the private keys properly. And there's tons of more things like NOM attack, which were exploited, but not because it was centralized, but for other reasons. My favorite, however, is this one. It's a very exaggerated headline, but essentially, the team can also lose access. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's on purpose, but things can happen if you have a centralized single point of failure. So, how do we build a decentralized bridge? Now, as mentioned before, our optimal case is that we don't want to trust anybody else, right? We've established if I'm bridging between Polkadot and Ethereum, I trust Polkadot and Ethereum by default, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be using the two chains. So the optimal case is that we inherit the security and decentralization guarantees of both Polkadot and Ethereum for our bridging mechanism. How do we do this? Well, the optimal case is that Ethereum can verify the Polkadot state. So Ethereum will look at Polkadot, they'll have a smart contract that is tracing the state updates of Polkadot, and we'll see, Alexei has locked up some dot and he wants to bridge it over. Perfect, let's give him some wrapped dot, and we're good. And vice versa, on the Polkadot side, you will have something, a parachain, something, or a dApp or a smart contract that's verifying Ethereum state. So when I want to go back, that contract will see, oh, Alexei has locked his tokens, his wrapped dot on Ethereum, they're being burned, let's give him back his dot. And the only thing you need is one honest online party to send the messages back and forth. And we'll come to that in a second. But these bridges are called light client bridges. They're called light client bridges because they use the same technique that you have on your phone when you run a wallet, right? If you have a wallet, the phone does not usually download the entire blockchain data. It downloads a little bit of metadata so it can verify the longest chain, and then it can verify that certain transactions have happened. Same concept here, but we'll go through it in more detail in a minute. Now, the interesting part is we've known how to do this since 2014 and actually even earlier. So back in 2014, and this comes from the Bitcoin community, there was a paper called Sidechains, and they described and actually summarized what has been debated in the forums of Bitcoin Talk before. Hey, you can have two light clients, two chains that can verify each other, and you get the best possible bridge. And well, the sad thing is we don't really have this yet today, and we'll explore why this is the case and why it's actually quite difficult. So if we look at it in more detail, what you get is, as an example before, right? The user logs dot, but in this case, the user logs dot with a smart contract, and then someone, so this person here, you cannot see it, but this person here relays the proof. So this can be you, me, anyone on this room can just run the node and just submit the proofs. And then on the Ethereum chain, right, that has this pink smart contract that's verifying the Polkadot chain, that smart contract will verify the proof and mint the wrapped dot to you. Perfect, you're not trusting anybody except maybe this person that's sending the proof. When you want to go back, same case. You return the dot, a proof is sent, Polkadot verifies, you get your dot back. Simple, and you don't have to trust any third party. Well, you have this person there, right? So you have the relayer. So what can this person do? Well, the attacker, if the relayer becomes malicious, can say, well, I will not relay any proofs anymore. So none of these smart contracts will be able to talk to each other. So what do we do then? The great thing about this design is that you can do it yourself. In the worst case scenario, you can spin up a node and you can start relaying the proofs between the two systems yourself. And that's why we say we just need one honest and online party, and this can be anyone in this room. Now, obviously, if I'm an application developer and I'm using a bridge like this, it makes a lot of sense to me to just also run one of the relayers so I don't trust others, and I know that reliably if I keep my relayer online, then it will keep operating. And then you have a network of different people that run this relayer together. So now briefly about the light client, skipping kind of back in the topic. So what's very important to understand is that the light client, it verifies the chain, so it parses the block headers, and it validates the proof of work or proof of stake. So it knows exactly, if it gets two chains, it knows exactly which one is the longer one, which one is the correct one. And it's able to verify transactions. And the security assumption is quite simple. The assumption is if a transaction has made it into the longest chain that I'm aware of, then I assume it's going to be valid. Why? Because if it was invalid, the nodes would have rejected it, and the network would have just said, no, this transaction is not valid, will not accept it into the main chain. And this way, we can assume that if a transaction gets into the main chain and I get a proof, I don't need to download the entire blockchain data because I can trust that nodes verified it, and hence it is correct. Right. That's it. So we built a decentralized bridge. Before we talk about difficulties, let's talk about economics, because these are actually very, very important when you bridge between networks. Now, let's say we have two chains. Green chain A, that's the market cap, very big network. And then we have chain B, which has a smaller network, right? Smaller market cap, smaller coin, let's say top 500 maybe. This is top 10. The gray dot here means that's the amount of assets in terms of dollar value that have been bridged over from chain B to chain A. The green small dot is the amount of dollar value that's been bridged over from chain A to chain B. This looks fine, right? Because none of these nodes, none of the consensus protocols is going to start attacking the bridge. They've much more to lose than to gain. But what if something like this happens? What if suddenly the smaller network is very popular, a lot of people bridge over, and the market value doesn't appreciate, and suddenly this might not be okay. So in theory, the node, and this is all theoretical, right? Of course, there might be a case where the consensus and the model of chain B no longer works because it's much better just to steal the assets and sell them than to continue operating honestly. And this is theoretical, but we will see this happen in the next 5-10 years definitely, as more and more bridges are built and as more systems get more and more assets into their networks, but the consensus is not as robust, which is why things like Polkadot make it very important with a shared security model. Right. Now, economic security is also important for bridges where we don't have light clients, right? So unfortunately, building light clients is not very easy, and in some cases, it's not really possible. So while we can do a Bitcoin light client on Polkadot, great, Interlay built this, it's working, but we cannot build a Polkadot light client on Bitcoin because Bitcoin has no smart contracts. So there's no way for us to react to any events that happen on Polkadot on the Bitcoin side. There's just not enough functionality. So somehow, we need somebody that actually handles the locking and unlocking of Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain because there just is no smart contract. So what you do then is, well, you use incentives, and you try to build an economically secure bridge where you trust a few people or you trust anyone on the internet, and you try to force them or make them behave in a certain way. So you use incentives and punishment. And that's, for example, how the Interlay Bitcoin bridge works. So that's how we bring Bitcoin from Bitcoin to Polkadot, right? anyone can become an operator. So I'm not sure if you can see it behind the desk, but you have operators. They're called vaults. So anyone in this room could spin up a vault today. You can join the network. You can be one of the operators. The moment you do that, you're asked to register by providing and depositing some collateral, right? So you deposit collateral in DOT, in USDC, USDT. Right now it's DOT and USDT, and more assets will be added. And this collateral is very important because this collateral is the insurance that you provide to the users that you will not steal their Bitcoin. And the system, let's say you put in $1,000 worth of collateral, the system will only allow users to send $500 worth of Bitcoin or so to your vault, to your node. And then for me as a user, if I want to bridge over Bitcoin, I deposit into one of the vaults as instructed by the chain, and then I know that the collateral in step 2 will be locked. This means that while I have my wrapped Bitcoin, I know that it is insured by the collateral of that node. And if that node or any other node steals the Bitcoin, I will be able to claim the insurance automatically. So at any point in time, as long as the system works correctly and the economic balance is maintained, your Bitcoin are insured, and you know that you'll definitely get them back or you'll be reimbursed. And that's what we can see in step 3A. If the vaults steal your Bitcoin, you can claim their collateral, and that can be USDC, DOT, and whatever, and then you can sell it and then buy Bitcoin on the secondary market and hence recover your assets and not face any economic damage. So this is essentially where economic security becomes very interesting and very relevant. Of course, you could add this collateral and insurance model to other things like wormhole, for example, and we actually have this, right? It's implicit, but we all kind of assume that, if something happens again, that jump will hopefully also bail it out a second time. So we're making implicit assumptions about some economic security and insurance. But you could also make it directly in protocol. Right, and this is essentially, of course, in this protocol, you have the light client verification. So in step 2 and 3, the chain checks that the Bitcoin transactions have actually been made, and hence you can't really lie to the Interlay chain about the Bitcoin transaction. The Interlay chain will always know which Bitcoin transactions have been made. Right, now let's talk a bit about Outlook and the more interesting stuff. What happens next? Like, what are we going to see in the future? So the message is, like, there will be chaos, definitely. Because there's a dozen of centralized bridges that are operating today. The bridge wars officially have begun. You have them attacking each other on Twitter. You have a dozen of them. A lot of them have raised a lot of money. And so they're definitely not going to disappear over the next couple of years. They're going to stick around and try to, dominate the market. Now, the problem is that most of them only support EVM chains today, right? There's work being done to get them to support substrate chains, but most only support EVM chains. This means that you have fragmentation of liquidity. First of all, if you have wormhole, Axelar, multi-chain, sealer in the Polkadot ecosystem, and you want to get ETH, you end up with having A ETH versus B ETH versus C ETH, because if I bridge through wormhole and you bridge through Axelar, these two Ethereum, they're not compatible. Like, they're not the same. So you're fragmenting liquidity. Then you have, because they only support EVM chains, you need to do things like multi-hop routing. So you have already, like, Hydra deployed this, right? They get Ethereum assets through a very nice solution via Kala. That works perfectly, a very nice showcase of how Polkadot, in the ecosystem can work together. And then Moonbeam has been working on a similar solution. But the problem is, if you go get Ethereum through wormhole through Akala, it's not the same as getting wormhole Ethereum through Moonbeam. They're not compatible. So now with parachains, we have to decide which bridge are we going to use, because if you use both, you're fragmenting liquidity in your own chain, and your users are just going to get super confused. So basically, you get the choice between having all eggs in one basket if you just trust one bridge, but then, Nomad got hacked, and that was really bad. So now, and you have to basically, you're taking a risk with one operator, which is currently what most parachains, and I generally think most chains are doing. Especially in the beginning, you pick one bridge operator and you go with that. But then the other option is you might want to just spray and pray, and then, if one bridge goes down, at least, there's other stuff operating and the damage might be limited. So it's a chaotic setup. Polkadot is building a bridge hub that hopefully should solve this issue, but it's probably already too late. And I hate to be the one that, announces doom, but we already have this problem. Now, why don't we have like-line bridges yet? So the problem is that generalized like-line bridges are very hard to build. You can't just say, here's a like-line bridge, it works for everything. No. Every chain has its own consensus, own designs, and you have to build a like-line bridge for every single chain. Bitcoin proof-of-work like-line bridges, perfect, works. Litecoin, no, that's too expensive because S-crypt proof-of-work algorithm is memory-heavy. It's super expensive to verify it. So you have to use trusted oracles again, not decentralized. Ethereum proof-of-stake kind of works, but we know that it has some issues. There were some papers published, like some research published recently, that you end up having an oracle, so it's kind of semi-decentralized at best currently. Solana proof-of-stake, I don't know, right? I haven't seen anyone build a decentralized like-client bridge for Solana yet. Maybe it's possible, but it takes a long time to build. And also very important, I know that a lot of bridge projects, they put ZK bridge on their thing and they say it's going to solve it. No, it doesn't. ZK does not solve this because for each of these proof-of-work algorithms, you need to build a custom circuit. So yes, it's more efficient, but then only half a dozen people worldwide can actually read the code, and you still need to build a custom implementation. So it's not that simple, and this is why we still don't have like-line to like-line bridges except within Polkadot and Cosmos, because these chains were designed to speak to each other. But connecting heterogeneous chains, which have completely different designs, does not yet work properly. But, and to end on a good note, the light side will prevail, so like-line bridges are definitely on the advance. You have XCM, you have IBC, and Polkadot will likely be one of the if not the first project to have a fully decentralized like-line bridge between Polkadot and Ethereum. Soon TM, we're all waiting for Polkadot Dakota to hear what the latest updates are. And my personal bet is that in 5 years, all big chains will have like-line bridges deployed between them. So Ethereum, Cosmos, Polkadot, Avalanche, maybe even Solana if they fix the like-line issue. And then you will not need centralized bridges anymore. Between these big chains, you will be able to use the centralized ones. Now, that does not mean that the centralized bridges will disappear, because it takes much more than technology to actually make a product work, but it's definitely going to be very interesting to see how they adapt. And with that, I mean, to end off with a meme, those of you who know, we're all waiting for Snowbridge. Hopefully it comes soon, and hopefully we can get a decentralized Polkadot to Ethereum bridge very soon. Thanks so much. Happy to take questions. Do we do questions? I'm not quite sure. Okay. Does anyone have a question? Otherwise, we can also chat afterwards over a beer. There's a question.
Yeah, I'll just give you a mic. Oh, it's a little bit loud. Good.
2 mics. Thank you for your presentation. Do you use Substrate Connect with Interlay?
Sorry?
Do you use Substrate Connect with Interlay? It's a light client.
I'm not sure. I would assume it will be supported, but I have not personally been involved in the integration. I know Substrate has Substrate Connect, great light client in the browser, but it doesn't solve our problem yet. So you had, like with Substrate, right? You had Grandpa and Beefy, and there's 2 ways to kind of do that. I think Composable tried to build a Cosmos IBC bridge using Grandpa. Snowbridge is trying to use Beefy, but they're also lacking some tooling. So yes, light clients for Polkadot work in browser, but to get it to work in an Ethereum smart contract is a bit more tricky. And I think that actually works now. The challenge was the other way. So I was just looking at an audit reports from Snowbridge recently for protocol and research. And I think the last bit that was difficult was Ethereum to Polkadot, because Ethereum has some issues with the sync committee. So yeah. So yes and no, kind of, is the answer.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for the talk. I was wondering what you foresee, like, collaborating with the Bridge Hub.
Sorry?
Yeah, you guys can't hear very well here.
It's quite loud because of the rain, yeah.
What sort of things do you plan on integrating with the Bridge Hub initiative now that's going to be launched soon? you mentioned that it's not really solving the problem. Can you elaborate on that?
So Bridge Hub basically aims to become a common goal parachain on Polkadot, and I think it's already live, by the way. And the goal was to have bridges connect to that Bridge Hub. So instead of each of us parachains having to work out which bridges we connect to, Wormhole, Axelar, and so on, and also like decentralized bridges. So instead of all of us having to connect to Snowbridge, and maybe there's another one, right, for different networks, they all go onto Bridge Hub. One place, all the bridges, and then each of us parachains just has to connect to this plus statement/asset hub. That brilliant idea, unfortunately, it's a bit too late because, of course, all parachain projects, we are pushing towards adoption. We need to launch products. We need, especially the ones who are doing DeFi, we need Ethereum assets. We need to basically have this exchange of tokens. And because Bridge Hub is not ready yet, specifically there's no bridges connected to it, it doesn't yet solve the problems. And the issue is that the longer we wait, the more projects like us and Hydra and A-Star and Moonbeam, and, we need bridges. And because Snowbridge is unfortunately not yet ready yet because it's quite difficult to build, we'll start working with centralized ones to give the users the opportunity to actually, get more assets. And we try to coordinate, but everybody has different needs. Everybody has different ways to, integrate, because obviously it's also a matter of getting the bridge operator to integrate you as well, because they have a long backlog. So somebody maybe at Wormhole, another team knows the Sailor team better, and so we all diverge. And now suddenly everybody has different bridges, different assets, and they're not compatible. And then essentially if you move them through XCM, so let's say you bridge, so think of it this way, if you bridge Bitcoin through Interlay to any parachain, it's pretty clear because it's like Bitcoin that came through Interlay. If there was another chain that was also bridging Bitcoin, they would not be compatible, and they'd start mixing up. So if you're, for example, getting Bitcoin from Wormhole into Polkadot, you actually have to, you can't use the Interlay bridge to get it out. You have to swap it. You have to swap WBTC for IBTC. And in this case, it's fine because there's only like two. There's WBTC and Ethereum, and then, it seems okay, but then because you have WBTC through Wormhole, WBTC through Axelar, WBTC through Sailor Bridge, through multi-chain, and then it becomes a big mess. So hopefully, Bridge Hub can somewhat consolidate, but there's going to be chaos, definitely. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.